California has 40 million people in it. Those 40 million people, 17.5 million pay taxes, less than half. And the worst part is, if you take away 200 guys, the billionaires, 200 guys, if you take them out of the equation, we lose 47% of our revenue.
California people, I have to ask you this question. When you're seeing Nick Shirley, right, all the fraud that's in your state right now, and then you see the response from your governor, Gavin Newsom, to make fun of him. California has 40 million residents, and out of the 40 million residents, only 17.5 pay taxes. Boy, you got a lot of freeloaders. So you have over half your population is just riding on all your money. The 17.5 million in California that pay taxes, what do you feel like right now? You're the highest tax state. They take your money like crazy. Highest taxes. Over half your population doesn't pay. You guys are footing the bill for everyone. Now Nick Shirley comes in and exposes all the fraud, and your governor makes fun of him. How do you feel?
What do you think was a misstep of Governor Newsom?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't accept the premise that there is like missteps. I think he's put some down payments, or for me, as a sports guy, everything's a sports analogy. I think he's gotten us pretty far down the field on mental health with what he did on Prop 1 and also on housing. And it's my job now to get us across the goal line. And so that's what I'm going to do. On mental health is to continue to expand mental health services, understand the difference between, the severely mentally ill and the severely addicted, and that they need different treatment than folks who are in transition. And then on housing, I'm going to put more shot clocks in place. I like what he did in Altadena and the Palisades. I want to have in every county, all 58 counties, what the governor did, put a 90-day shot clock. Tell those agencies you have 90 days to approve or deny every outstanding housing application.
So you're saying that you don't think there's anything that Gavin Newsom did wrong?
I'm saying we will do things differently, but right now, Californians are pretty lucky to have Gavin Newsom as the protector that he is.
Okay, I have to ask you.
Yeah.
Is he endorsing you? You're honestly the first person who sat here and has not been able to say one thing that Gavin Newsom did wrong. So, the reason we asked this question is because I think it really is telling, is this next governor going to support the good and the bad? Or is he going to say, yes, this is something that I wouldn't have done or I would have done differently? Is there anything you would have done differently than Governor Newsom?
Yeah, I think what he did in the Palisades and Altadena is something I'm going to do in all 58 counties to expedite housing.
Okay.
Hello, California. Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco and your next governor. We are coming to the end of tax season, and there are hundreds of thousands of Californians who work in the hospitality industry who are realizing and finding out the truth about our current governor and the majority of our legislature. The truth about California government is that state government has an unquenchable thirst for your money, and they despise people who work hard. In an effort to relieve the burden on some of our hardest working Californians, President Trump exempted tips from taxes. But our failed California governor and majority of the legislature said, no, we want your money. Not only are they taxing the middle class into leaving California, they are taxing businesses and millionaires and billionaires out of California. No more jobs, no more workers, no more California. By putting me in the governor's office, you will not only get to keep your tips, Californians will no longer pay any state income tax. I know for a fact you can spend your money better than the corrupt social agenda in Sacramento. Help me save your paychecks and help me save our state. Send me to Sacramento to end this corruption.
Well, family, let me say this. All right. 1 second. Let me say this. This as clearly and as bluntly as possible. California is not just struggling. It is collapsing under the weight of its own policies. And the people running that state either don't understand what's happening or they're too committed to their ideology to admit they are wrong. And that right there should concern every single American watching this, because what starts in California never stays in California. It spreads. It influences policy across the country. And the way California go, the rest of the United States go. And if we don't call it out now, you're going to see the same exact blueprint show up in other states. And then we're all dealing with the consequences. Now look at the numbers, because this is where it gets insane. You got around 40 million people in California, and only about 17.5 million of them are actually paying taxes. But let that sink in for a second. Less than half of the population is carrying the financial weight of the entire state. But it gets even worse because out of that group, a tiny fraction, we're talking about roughly 200 individuals, are responsible for over half of the total tax revenue, which means the entire state is balanced on the backs of a handful of highly productive people. And what does California do in response to that reality? They try to make the environment more friendly for those people. They try to do they try to stabilize things? No. They go in the opposite direction and start talking about wealth, taxes, targeting billionaires, squeezing them even harder. And then act confused when those same people start leaving. Of course, they're leaving. If you punish success long enough, success will leave. That is basic economics. That is human nature. And instead of correcting course, the leadership doubles down and pretends everything is fine. And on top of that, you got a culture where people don't even want to hear the truth anymore. They've been so conditioned that if something challenges their worldview, they just tune it out completely. And then you got politicians who can't even answer a basic question honestly. You ask them what they would do differently, and they say everything was perfect, as you guys seen in the clip. Everything was great. No changes needed. That is not leadership. That is someone selling you something. That is someone afraid to be honest because honesty would expose the failure. And even when you look at leaders on the right, nobody claims perfection because reality doesn't work like that. But in California, you got the environment where accountability is basically non-existent. And now people are leaving in droves, and the rest of the country is looking at this and saying, hold on. Don't bring those policies over here because this isn't just about one state. This is about an ideology that prioritizes control over freedom and dependence over self-reliance. So the real question is, how did California get here? And why are the people in charge still acting like everything is working out exactly as intended? Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel. And let's take a step further, because when you actually break this down, because what you're seeing isn't random, it's a direct result of policy decisions that have been building for years. When you create a system where fewer and fewer people are responsible for funding everything, you create instability by design. And California has leaned heavily into progressive tax structures where the highest earners are carrying the most of the burden. Now, on paper, that might sound fair to some people, but in reality, it creates a massive vulnerability because those high earners are the most mobile people in the country. Not to mention that the highest earners in the country are already getting taxed the most, and they can leave whenever they want. And when they do, the entire system starts to crack. And that's exactly what we are seeing. Businesses relocating, individuals moving to states like Texas and Florida, because like I said, the wealthy, the rich already pay the most highest of taxes to fund programs like social services over there in California. In other states, they already pay the highest amount. So when you look at that, and individuals moving to states like Texas and Florida, instead of asking why is this happening, politicians in California keep pushing the same policies: more taxes, more regulation, more control. And then you got candidates like Eric Swalwell that you guys seen, and others who come out and basically say they wouldn't change a thing. They want to follow into the footsteps of Gavin Newsom, maybe tweak a few things here and there, but overall, everything is great. That should be a red flag to anyone paying attention, because if the current system is clearly producing negative results and your answer is to continue the same path, you are not offering leadership. You are offering more of the same failure. And this is where the frustration really comes in, because the people of California are the ones dealing with the consequences: high cost of living, rising crime in certain areas, businesses shutting down, people struggling to make ends meet, and yet the political class continues to operate like none of that is happening. And when people speak out and when they present facts and when they point out the imbalance, a lot of it just gets ignored or dismissed. And on top of that, you got concerns about election integrity being raised, reports of questionable practices like incentivizing voter registration in ways that raise serious ethical questions. And all of this contributes to a system where people feel like their voice doesn't even matter anymore. And that is a dangerous place for any state to be. And if you really want to understand what's happening here, you have to zoom out, look at the bigger picture, because this isn't just about California. This is about a long-standing ideological battle that goes all the way back to the founding of this country, and even before that, and it centers around one key concept: private property and individual independence. Because the founders, founding fathers of this country, United States of America, understood something very clearly. If the government controls your property, it controls your freedom. And that's why the Constitution was designed to limit government power, not expand it. And when you look at Supreme Court decisions like District of Columbia v. Heller and New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin that I mentioned a lot, you see that same principle reinforced, the idea that individual rights are not granted by the government. They are protected from the government. And when you start moving towards policies that concentrate more power in the hands of the state, whether it's through taxation, regulation, or redistribution, you are moving away from that foundation. And this is where the warnings from people like Thomas Swalwell and Margaret Thatcher become incredibly relevant, because they both pointed out that the push toward socialism, even in small increments, always trends in the same direction: less freedom, less prosperity, more dependence, and eventually economic decline. And Thatcher said it best: there is no such thing as safe socialism, because once you start down the path, the incentives change, productivity gets punished, dependency gets rewarded, and the system becomes unsustainable. And that's exactly what we're seeing play out. Now, to be fair, supporters of these policies will argue that higher taxes on the wealth are necessary to fund social programs, to reduce inequality, to provide services. And on the surface, that sounds compassionate. But the problem is that it ignores basic economic reality. You cannot indefinitely rely on a shrinking group of people to fund an expanding system. Eventually, something has to give. And when it does, it's usually the middle class and the working class that feel it the most. And if California didn't have the backing of federal funds to help stabilize things, the situation would likely be even worse, which raises an even bigger question about long-term sustainability. So at the end of the day, this is about accountability and direction, because right now California is on a path that is clearly not working. And instead of correcting course, the leadership is doubling down and asking for more trust, more power, and more time, while offering the same ideas that created the problem in the first place. And the people of California need to start treating these politicians exactly who they are and what they are: job advocates, because that's what this is. They are applying to run your state, to make decisions that affect your life, your finances, your future, and the next generation. Children, your kids, children. And if someone walked into a job interview and couldn't answer basic questions, couldn't admit mistakes, and just keep repeating the same failed strategy, you wouldn't hire them. So why would you vote for them? And at some point, people have to decide whether they're going to continue accepting this or start demanding something better, because history has shown over and over again that when governments grow too large and too controlling, the outcome is always the same: less freedom and less prosperity. And if you don't learn from that history, you're going to repeat it. So whether you are in California or anywhere else in the country, pay attention to what's happening, because this is bigger than one state. This is about the direction of the country as a whole. And the choices being made right now are going to have long-term consequences. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think California could turn this around, or is it too far gone? Make sure you hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel and turn on your post notifications so you don't miss the next one. Spread that peace, love, and positivity. And as always, family, we just having a conversation. Peace.